Okay, I think we are live and good to go. You are all very welcome to the first installment of the DCU webinar week that's taking place over the Easter holidays for any of our secondary school students that are tuning in today. My name is Sinead. I'm going to be your MC or your host for this whole week's webinar. Just to make sure that you're on the right one today, we're going to be covering our science and health new programs at DCU. Tomorrow, we're going to be looking at our humanities and engineering new courses. And then on Thursday, we're going to be covering the new courses and specialism in the business faculty. So just make sure everyone knows the schedule for the week, but you are very welcome. I'm going to add our panelists into the call in a moment's time, but just to give you some context basically for why we're running this series and why now. And we thought we'd give some students who are interested in these new program areas some dedicated time through a webinar to ask really important questions to our current students studying the courses, but also the academics who are lecturing or programming or chairing the programs in DCU as well. So while we offer a lot of traditional courses in DCU, we are always looking at what new areas are coming down the line in terms of future careers and research areas, and also how we're teaching as well. We're starting to look at, getting students to work together in group projects through hackathons, different excursions, which our academics and current students will go into more detail about today. So if you have any questions at all, you're more than welcome to use the Q&A function that's there or the chat box. You can use that, but this really is the time to ask any questions that you might have if you want to work or study in any of these exciting new areas. So I'm going to start adding our panelists into the call. You're more than welcome to turn on your camera and microphone as you enter, and we'll do a little introduction. I'm going to get my sheet of paper out because there's a lot of people here to join us today. So representing our new, one of our new psychology courses, Psychology and Maths, we have Dr. Louise Hopper, and if Emma Sinnott is here, she's going to join us as well as a student representative. So Louise, I'm going to promote you now. Hopefully this works. And Emma hasn't joined us yet, but that's okay. She might join a little bit later. For psychology and disruptive technology, we're going to add Dr. Lorraine Boren, who can speak about the program here. Lorraine, you're very welcome. And also current student Mark Brady. Oh, Louise and Emma, you're there together. That's very clever. Yes. I must say, that's a great way of doing things. I forget that you can actually be in the same room now. Not everything is on Zoom. Chemistry with artificial intelligence, which is one of our specialism in chemistry. We have Dr. Emma Coyle, who I'm going to promote now. And let's see if student Kosi is with us currently. Kosi, you're more than welcome. I'm promoting you to a panelist as well. Representing bioprocessing, we have Dr. Brian Freeland, and Brian, that's connecting you now. And we have student Mala Mohammed, who's going to be talking about their experience as well. There's Mala now, and I can promote you to a panelist. We're almost there. And finally, representing our physics specialism, physics with data analytics, we have Dr. Carson Fleischer, and Cameron is going to be joining us as well. So I think we have done this successfully. That's the one. Brilliant. Now, that must be one of the busiest webinars I've seen in terms of panelists. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming along today. You're very welcome. We won't have you all speak at once. I don't think Zoom would cope with that, but we will certainly dedicate 5 or 10 minutes to each of these really exciting degree programs. So just to explain to the viewers again, we have lots of new courses throughout DCU, and today we're going to be focusing on the science faculty. So we have 2 new courses and 3 new specialisms. So if you have an interest in psychology, we have 2 new programs that might be exciting for you to hear about today. Or if you're interested in biology, chemistry, or physics, we have specialisms in those areas as well that you might decide to take on after your first year. So to save everyone sweating and being on camera the whole time, I might just ask our psychologists to have their cameras on and their microphones on for the time being, and we might consult you guys first. So if anyone wants to head off and make a cup of tea or grab some water, this is the best time to do it. So I'm just going to change the view also to speaker, so we make sure that whoever's talking has the full screen. So psychology, goes without saying, is a super popular area. I think in every single university, we all have an interest, I guess, in human behavior and why we do the things we do, how that impacts other people. And we used to just have the one psychology psychology degree in DCU, which is our BSc in psychology, but we've added 2 new ones. So we might go to Lorraine first. Lorraine, you are Programme Chair of Psychology and Disruptive Tech. You might just give us a sense of what that's all about. Where does the technology cross into the study of psychology?
Thanks, Sinead, and I know Mark is on the call as well, so he'll be able to speak to it from a student perspective. I think the thinking around psychology and technology just totally makes sense, even from a futures perspective. When we think about how we think and we behave, technology is such an important part of just supporting us, nudging us, influencing us. And the traditional psychology program focuses on really important core areas, which our degrees, both of our new degrees have, and that's for accreditation and to be able to move forward if you want to train, like step 2, training in professional psychology. But the technology component is where we look at this really important, like the forefront of research of human behavior, human thinking, and technology. So we're talking about artificial intelligence, and we all know about OpenAI right now. It's a really, really big discussion point, but like this has been in development for 5 to 10 years. We're looking at that, the ethics of that, how it can support our thinking, how it can make us reason in a better way, how it can rehabilitate, how it can educate. But that it doesn't stop at AI. We look at social robotics, and we look at all the other more basic applications that we have in our devices that are used to support our behavior. So it's really looking at being able to develop skills around technology, and that includes programming, which psychologists need to be able to do, to be able to analyze human data, which psychologists need to be able to do, but also work at that forefront of where psychologists work in industry. So in a way, they're the next generation of working between psychologists and computer scientists and engineers and so on. So the degree kind of wraps that all in. So we study psychology. That's really important for pre-professional, professional training in psychology. We study technology and programming, and we have subjects that are at the interface of both of those. So technology and ethics and technology and the law. So really exciting and new modules.
Yeah, very exciting. And I think that's a theme that the listeners will hear throughout this webinar is the kind of all the disciplines coming together. It's not really, I guess, the norm anymore to just have one area of knowledge. Employers and even for research, all these areas are overlapping now. And really that's what you guys are looking at. So when you're delivering the teaching, Lorraine, for a course like this, is it sitting in lecture halls? Are you encouraging kind of group work, lab work? What can, a prospective student hope to enjoy if they enroll in this course?
So from a futures perspective, when we sat back and we looked at how are we going to deliver and assess, we're very different in terms of delivery. So we have a focus on online as well as traditional in campus, working together. So This is for the real world to be authentic. We work with people, but like right now we're all online. We share documents. We do a lot of thinking and decision making online. So quite a lot of the timetable will be online, and that can be synchronous or it can be asynchronous. So we might do an information share at the beginning of the week, you work in your groups, and then we come together at the end of the week, that type of thing. In terms of our assessments, we have traditional, but we also have more kind of authentic industry related assessments. So one of those is the hackathons, and you might hear about that. So that is where students set a challenge for themselves. They identify a problem. Very often it has a big societal impact. And then they work together to identify a solution. And part of that is on the feet thinking. It's bringing in disciplines together. And very often we have like a day or more of a hackathon. So it's this like really good stress together, let's problem solve and figure out a solution. And then you have to be able to communicate that solution and persuade someone that this is the right solution. So we have a combination of traditional, but also more authentic, real world type assessments that we know are important for graduates as they leave DCU and work or study further.
Yeah, and I think that's exciting again for secondary school students. I know that the curriculum for a secondary school doesn't often encourage, say, kind of like brainstorming new ideas. It's a lot of rote learning. You're kind of given what you need to know. So I love that when, you know, students come to DCU for a course like this, it's really encourage work together, see what new ideas you can come up with, which is likely how a course like this came to be. It's people putting their heads together, identifying trends, what needs to be researched, which is so exciting. So we might pass the virtual mic over to Mark now. Mark, you are one of the very popular student representatives of this course. You're always helping us out, helping us understand more about a course like this. Did you always have an interest in tech, or did you kind of just take a leap with a new course like this?
No, so I've come back to university. Oh, my camera's disconnected there. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you, Mark. Yeah, don't worry.
Okay. I've an alternative camera. Yeah, so I've always been interested in tech. I'm a mature student who's returned to university, and over the years in various different jobs and roles that I've had, kind of there's always been an element of tech. And as a child, I was a bit of what you might call a geek, and I was into basic programming. I just remembered there recently, one of the first things I got when I was 10 years old from my father was a computer and a book on learning how to basic program. And I totally forgot that I did it. It was my brother reminded me, and I was like, oh yeah. So I think there's kind of been that element of technology in my blood. And then I suppose over the years, the area of psychology had greatly interested me in observing different things in society. I got caught up in the pop psychology world, where you might make assumptions about people and whatever that, you know, that seem to match up, but it's not necessarily correct. But kind of just over the years, I've grown that interest in really exploring and discovering what psychology is all about. And then when I seen this course online, when I was looking up all the different CAO options, I was very overwhelmed with all of the different options everywhere.
Yeah.
But I was really dead set that I wanted something in psychology, but I was looking at psychology from the applied perspective. So I had been specifically looking for that applied element to a psychology course. And then I discovered psychology and disruptive technologies on DCU the very first year that it ever came about. And yeah, it was a no-brainer. As soon as I seen it, was my number one choice.
Yeah, it sounds like it's the perfect course for you. Really, it was made with Mark in mind, which is great. How have you found the I guess joining the two areas together? Like, did you find you know, learning how to build websites or program, like, was that difficult coming in, or like was the support available there even if you didn't get your learning how to program book from your dad when you were young?
Yeah, and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier on, Sinead, in regards to the changes from second level education to third level education, and that movement and shift from rote learning to it's self-discovery, it's self-guided, it's self-directed, and often it can be quite daunting for students coming from that from the second level to third level to kind of, you know, grab hold of that. It's up to you. You're the one riding the bicycle, you know, you're getting all this information thrown at you and all of that, and you decide what you want to do with it. So I think in that regard, for me, and I suppose based on kind of attitude, like coming in with the attitude of wanting to learn is really important. But you get kind of brought through these various different modules, and some of the modules are, you know, completely different to what another module might be, and especially at the very beginning it might seem quite disconnected, but you start to see it all kind of come together. And like a lot of the things in psychology, when you start learning about functions in the brain, you start like looking at like computer systems, and you're like, oh my god, a computer works in the same way. And you know, there's all of these different things, and you start to understand what algorithms are, how they work, and really helps you kind of start thinking in that design thinking process that you need to kind of, you know, depending on what your projects are all about. but there's a high level of design element, and there's opportunities to take part. Well, actually, it's not opportunities, it's part of the program where you're doing web design, programming, Python. At the moment, I'm in second year, so we are coming to the end. Our assignments are on right now, and we are designing our own internet applications. And we really get to, I know a lot of my fellow classmates, and I included in one of our projects, particularly, we were able to bring aspects of psychology into computer science, develop like websites and applications around the theme of psychology. I'm taking a bit of a break this time. I'm taking a different approach on this particular application, but it's really exciting. You have the freedom to really explore different creative alleyways. So
yeah, that's great. And I guess it's a great course as well for someone, as you said, who has an interest in psychology, but maybe you don't want to do a straight up computing degree. You like elements of it. It's a really nice crossover. Sounds like you're opening a can of worms, but in the best possible way in terms of the areas that you're uncovering. You're like, oh God, there's loads out there, but isn't that exciting? Sure. Lorraine, just a quick question that's come in. What is the status at the minute in terms of the PSI accreditation for this course?
So for both of our Futures psychology programs, they're currently under review, and that is the normal typical process for a new degree. It's always in year 2. So we hope to update by the summer, and we're absolutely hopeful and looking forward to that accreditation. But it's pending accreditation right now.
Of course, that's great. Thanks a million. So we'll stay in the same psychology lane, and we'll pass over to Dr. Louise Hoppe and Emma, who are in the same room, which is brilliant. Can you guys tell us a little bit about the psychology and maths program for those interested?
Sure, Sinead, thanks very much. So psychology and maths is it's exactly as it sounds. It's taking psychology and it's taking the kind of fundamentals of advanced mathematics that you would cover in third level, but bringing them together in a way that you can use the advanced numeracy skills to help actually understand the psychology of the human, or the sort of psychological traits in more detail. And then you can also spin it the other way around, in the sense that if you're using mathematical algorithms or modeling or machine learning to look at huge data sets, which are a kind of a part and parcel of our life at the moment, all of this data that is collected about everyone, you can bring a knowledge of how human beings think and behave and act, and actually make more sense of that data. So they're two subjects that actually traditionally have always gone very well together, even if people haven't realized it. Like, even if you do a pure psychology degree, for example, a huge part of that is learning how to do psychological research, which has a statistical component to that. So we're just taking that further, and we're looking at areas like algebra and calculus, more advanced statistics, and then also looking at modeling and machine learning and things like coding and cryptography, and applying what we know about humans to each of those areas. So we start, because obviously there's quite an amount of basic mathematical and psychological knowledge that you need to sort of have to get started. So the two are studied sort of side by side in first year, and we make a few links, if you like, between the two. And then as you move on to second year, the links become more solidified, and you start to see them appearing more and more, and that continues then through third and fourth year. But similar to what Lorraine would have said there, we also would use a variety of different teaching styles. We wouldn't have quite as much online content at the moment. There are some subjects that lend themselves to that, and others that we still would have, say, more traditional laboratory type classes. But we're moving all the time towards broadening out, not only to connect psychology and maths more closely together, but also to look at other disciplines. So we had all of a variety of our first and second year students last week were out at an all-day event in Microsoft, for example. So we would link in with different industry partners, and the hope as we go through up into, say, third and fourth year is we'll be doing similar things, but also with other disciplines. So students from other futures programs, whether they're chemistry or physics, business, you know, so it'll start to look much more like the kind of multidisciplinary environment that you would get in a workplace.
Yeah, that's great. And I think what's really comforting for, again, prospective students is that they don't need to think that they're going to enter the course and need to know psychology and maths and how it all relates and how it all goes together, because really that's not something they even vaguely touch off in secondary school. The fact that you get your maths modules, you'll get the psychology modules, and then you'll build that foundation first, and then you can start to wrap your head around it, because it's a totally different ball game at university. But I think that's why the courses are structured very carefully and specifically so that you can kind of progress on. And you kind of answered my question, which I had, which was, you know, a lot of people won't go on to actually become a clinical psychologist after these courses. Not everyone will want to do that, but you could end up working in somewhere like Microsoft or any of those kind of internship partnerships that we have. The career options are quite wide after.
Well, they are, and to some extent that's where the programs, I suppose, really were designed from. So the idea that not everybody may want to go on and do say clinical psychology, you know, there's nothing to stop you doing that. You know, the course will be PSI accredited when we get through that process, and then you know, so you can still do all of the things that you could do with a pure psychology degree. That doesn't change, but it opens up a lot of employment opportunities, say directly after an undergraduate. So there isn't the necessity to do a master's degree or a doctorate program afterwards. So anything that you can think of, any industry that you can think of that needs to know anything about humans. So that could be designing any kind of product for use by human beings, or you know, any industry where you're trying to maybe persuade people of something or understand behavior, you know, any sort of research and development units. These will all have positions for somebody with the sort of the combination of psychology and mathematics.
Yeah, that's great. Mark, did you want to hop in there, or was that an accident putting your hand up?
No, I just kind of wanted to iterate kind of what Louise was saying about career from a student point of view. And I came in, you know, with probably like after I started, I realized how little knowledge I actually had about the psychology world, because I just seen clinical psychology, therapist, all of that. That's kind of what I was set up with when I came in. And I certainly know a lot of my classmates kind of had that in mind, but I've seen a massive shift in the past 2 years in regards to what we're all kind of evolving into being interested in. So like there's a lot of things around data and data analysis and all of those kind of jobs, which I think are starting to gauge people's interest because of how much money you can earn in those areas later on in careers. But behavioral science and all of that area has been a big area of interest for us that I certainly never even considered or thought about it beforehand. So so a lot of what the programs kind of bring out, it might change a person's mind on what they'd be interested in.
Yeah, that's a great insight, Mark. And that's something we'd always encourage students coming in, is be open-minded, because you're going to learn and hear of careers that you never heard of before, or like DCU Futures courses, there could be new careers in 3 years' time that we never even predicted would be around. So you know, make sure to keep an open mind. If you do want to go down the psychology route, as you said, you can continue on that, no one's stopping you, but know that there are lots of other things out there that need the study of psychology behind them. So we might ask Emma. Emma, how are you finding psychology and maths at the minute? Is it what you expected?
Yeah, I really enjoy it now at the minute. I suppose in first year, as Louise said, that it's two very separate, the maths and the psychology, which I actually enjoyed, because I thought I might get bored if I was just doing pure psychology or pure maths. I'd easily get bored of it. So then it's nice to have the break of, if you do a full day of maths studying, say, the next day you can do psychology, which is nice. And I suppose now as well, we're starting to find the links between the maths and psychology just in the last couple of weeks in our different modules. And the modules as well have been really interesting. I wasn't expecting to do programming. I didn't think we would be doing that when I started, so that was different. And the psychology modules, the research especially, was nice at the start as there was a lot of group work. So then that was very nice to get to know all the people in your course, and be also mixed with the BPDT course.
Yeah.
So we could get to know more people in their courses, and it was the same for social psychology. We had a big element of group work, so that was really beneficial to make friends and get to know everybody.
Yeah, amazing. And then when you were, say, applying for the course, did you have or do you have a career path in mind, or were you kind of just willing to be open about, well, I like these two areas, let's see how it goes?
Yeah, well, originally I was thinking of pure psychology. And I suppose I was kind of worried about what if I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And then kind of my interests in applying for this DCU were psychology, and the next was maths, because I really enjoyed maths in school. So then I thought, when I saw the course, it was a perfect match for me, because I really enjoyed maths, and the area I wanted to kind of go into was psychology. So then even now I still want to go into psychology after I graduate, but I always have the maths, which I enjoy, in case I am enjoying it, but in case I didn't enjoy the psychology part, I had the maths.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd say to anyone listening who is considering either of these courses, but maybe are worried about either element, I'm not too sure if I'd be good at the tech or the maths or the psychology. I'd always say if you can get into DCU, you can complete your degree, because there's so much support available there, whether it's the Maths Learning Centre, which is a free service for our students to get assistance with their maths assignments, or if it's writing essays, because you have a fair bit of that in psychology as well. And those word counts are quite high for those essays you have to write. So you can go to the Writing Centre and get that support available as well. So don't worry if you feel that you're not a pro at either area and you think you might fall behind. There's so much support, and I think it's been clear with Mark and Emma's experience, the academics are so supportive as well and are really willing to help you where you can. Thank you so much to our psychologists and our future psychologists for giving your insight. You're welcome to turn off your cameras and mics now, but I might ask you to stick around just in case there are questions that come in, and you can type them into the chat box. But thank you so much. Let's move on and to our patiently waiting panelists for chemistry. So I wonder if Emma and Kosi could come on screen and we can chat a little bit about, I've jotted down, it says the first degree of its kind in Ireland, chemistry and artificial intelligence. No pressure then in terms of explaining what this course is all about. How are things, Emma?
Good, thank you, Sinead. They're all going well.
Good stuff. Can't see Kosi on the call, but we might just continue on.
No, she's there. I see her on my screen.
Yeah, I can't. Oh, Kosi, forgive me.
For sure.
100 panelists. I'm so sorry. That's great that you're here. So Emma, we might start off with yourself, as we did with our previous academics. Just give us an elevator pitch about what this course is all about.
Okay, well, as you say, we're very proud of the fact that it's the first course of its kind in Ireland. So we're looking at this, bringing together a chemistry degree, but to specialise in artificial intelligence. So it's primarily a chemistry degree, but rather than the traditional, more theoretical chemistry, computational chemistry, we're looking at applied chemistry. We're applying artificial intelligence to chemical challenges. And it is a huge emerging area. At the moment, people who work in that area tend to be people who have finished their undergraduates and then they upskill by doing a master's where they add on programming and elements of machine learning and artificial intelligence. So what's making our course really unique is that we're going to equip our undergraduates straight out of their undergraduate degrees will have that skill already developed. It's obviously, we had, just like Lorraine had said, we've been developing the course for quite some time, definitely before the huge balloon of ChatGPT in the last couple of months and that. But obviously artificial intelligence is now getting very widespread, very well known in the more kind of lay audience than just in the computational scientists and that. So from our perspective, we're looking at graduates who can use the tools very well and sensibly and applying them well to lots of different areas in chemistry, particular medicinal chemistry and drug development or in new materials and in the environment.
Exactly. That's literally what I've jotted down, Emma. I was saying, how on earth is it also you can be covering medicine and then also looking at climate change? How is that possible? Where, and for someone like me who has no background in chemistry, where is that crossover? Like, is there an example you could give the listeners of an area like ChatGPT? Where does that interlink with chemistry, or where do the two, meet in the middle?
Well, actually, I suppose a really nice way of looking at it, or what we like to say, is that like all of us are able to use apps on our phone. So maybe we'll use WhatsApp or Zoom as an example.
Yep.
So we can open up the app on our phone and we can use it. But we don't know anything about the code that underpins that, or we didn't develop that from scratch, but we're able to communicate using it because we're experienced at communication. So similarly, with a really strong foundation in chemistry and knowledge of the different areas of chemistry, like you say, what brings together drug design and climate change? Well, they're all underpinned by fundamental chemistry. So if you understand some physical chemistry properties, you know an awful lot. And then being able to use your skill using tools that exist. So using some programming skills and using some different chemistry apps that already exist, or chemistry software, and bringing together some existing computational software, you can really distill a lot of information. We kind of look on the artificial intelligence of the spectrum of how we handle data. As chemists, we have always handled a huge pile of data that we make lots and lots of results and we learn from them. And it started as we did one experiment, we looked at the results of that, then we look at the literature and the results of other people's experiments, but now we're looking at the results of hundreds and thousands and millions of experiments that are being carried out. We're looking at all of the data that's shared communally, all of the papers that exist. There's so much data. So now we're building, what's the next level? We can take data, we can process it, we can analyze it, we can develop some algorithms to pull out information without manually looking at every single thing. And can we bring it to the next level where we can infer using artificial intelligence to make some inferences and really streamline the chemical process, that we're making the materials we think have the best chance of working. We're not trying everything.
Yeah, of course. And then I guess with, covering these new areas and the vast amount of data you have to deal with, I'd imagine the teaching style has kind of evolved as well. Like we kind of covered in psychology, there's probably not as much maybe sitting in a lecture hall as there was, in chemistry degrees gone by. I jotted down, there's a wet lab. What on earth is a wet lab?
Well, I think a wet lab is probably the most traditional chemistry lab you can think of. It's where you go into the lab, you wear your white coat and your goggles, and you use the chemicals, you do the experiments, you follow the protocols, and you're in there in person doing the labs. So what we're also working on, so that's wet labs, really hands-on. So obviously that's something we're really proud of for our chemistry students. And as part of the School of Chemical Sciences, we have quite a good reputation for our students' hands-on skills, and we don't want to lose that in our chemistry with AI students. So what we're looking at is the use of virtual labs to supplement that. So perhaps there's some instruments we don't have access to, but we can get virtual labs where we can get the experience of using them and handling the data that they generate, of course. Or we may use virtual labs to do what we call an extend activity. So you've done a wet lab, you've done the hands-on skill, you've learned about it, but you could do an extend activity to try out other iterations of it, some troubleshooting where something's gone wrong, what do you think it is? Or we might do using virtual components to really get in the lab and get off to the best start. So you'll do your safety stuff virtually in advance, so you know when you go into the lab exactly what you're doing, very focused. So we're looking at virtual labs to supplement our wet labs to make that experience even better.
Yeah, that's great. So you're almost going hybrid in a way as well, even in terms of science, which is probably an area people didn't think that you could do that, which is so exciting. So I might pass it over to Kosi now. How are you finding chemistry with AI? Did you always have a feeling you'd go into this strand, or is it kind of a new idea for you?
I'd say it's a mix of new and something that I'd always knew I'd do, because I knew I wanted to do chemistry since I was in third year. And with the AI sort of computer science aspect as well, I've always had an interest in that when I was a kid, like with my sister. We'd always mess around with the computer. She knows a bit more about this than me because she decided to fully go into computer science. But we both of us had always had an interest in that as well. And I suppose in secondary school, they didn't really, not allowed, but they didn't really talk about that much because it's not like a Leaving Cert subject, or it's not a junior cert subject as well. Like the most you touch on it is like the sort of TOI sort of subject you have where you do touch typing and you do a bit of coding. Like I did that as well, and I found that interesting. So, and I knew I didn't want to do a huge amount of biology, and with the AI, I'm not saying it isn't there, but it wouldn't be specialized for us as it would for analytical science. So it worked out extremely well for me in that case. Like I love it personally. Yeah.
That's great. And can you give us 1 or 2 modules that you're really enjoying at the minute? If you were in, say, 5th or 6th year in secondary school, what would you have to look forward to in this course?
I'd say we're doing introduction to programming, and really enough, I love organic chemistry as well, just to touch on the chemistry side as well. And if I want to talk more about programming, I really like how simple it is, because basically, other than what I did in secondary school, I knew nothing about Python, the language you're doing. I was a bit nervous that I need to know a bit more going in, but it's so nice because it's taught really well, it's laid out really well, and it jumps up in difficulty nicely as well. So it doesn't feel like you're given really hard stuff from the beginning. So yeah.
That's amazing. And the horrible question to ask someone who's only in second year, but career opportunities, do you think you'll stick in this sort of area? It sounds like you're quite liking the kind of AI side of things. Is that something you might go into?
I really want to learn more about machine learning, because I'm starting to realize how easy it is to incorporate machine learning into everything.
Right.
For the hackathon project, we're trying to do, I'm not going to explain fully, but we're trying to predict something that could happen in the future based on data we already have from the past. And we didn't consider how difficult that sounds, even though it's so sort of simple sounding. That would require machine learning. And we're not at that level yet. That's next year, 3rd year for us. But I'd like to go into that way more. Yeah.
So you kind of get to dip your toe in that water now.
Absolutely.
You have the opportunity to continue. But like we said before with the psychology, even if you did decide that you just wanted to go pure chemistry, you still have a degree in chemistry, which is fantastic.
Absolutely.
So you might change your mind, or even throughout your career. This is the reality now. There's not really a job for life. People aren't sticking to the one area. So you might spend a few years in data, and then you might switch over, back to chemistry. There's a lot of flexibility there, which is fantastic. So just remember, guys, anyone who's listening, pop in any questions that we have for our chemists there who want to go into anything else. And just one thing to drop as well is that you will get placement, won't you, in your 3rd year?
Yeah.
It's so important for employment afterwards.
With Intra, it's actually really interesting because we have way more potential companies to work out than the other 2 chemistry degrees, analytical science and chemistry pharmaceutical sciences, because of the AI sort of branch as well.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So you have options, which is fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Is there anything, Emma, that we've missed to touch on that you'd like to mention before we?
I just mentioned as well, I always like to point out how big the chemical and pharmaceutical industry is in Ireland, because it is a really massive contributor to Ireland's economy. And as a result, it has been quite robust over the course of recessions and that. So we have a very long-standing, well-established chemical industry. We have loads of really good existing partners already. And like Cozy said, having this AI aspect as well has just really increased the opportunity for our students in their entry placements, and of course beyond that once they graduate.
It's amazing. And for anyone who isn't sure what Intra is, it's basically a work placement service that we offer in DCU for most of our courses. So you actually get to try out an area that you have an interest in while you're in DCU, and it could help you establish that's exactly what you want to do. Or you might say, actually, I prefer to go into a different area when I finish. So I think there's no bad internship experience. It will give you kind of an answer either way as to what you're enjoying. Thank you so much to Emma and to Kosi. That was really, really valuable insights. We might stick with our data theme and move on to our new physics specialism, which is physics with data analytics. And we'll welcome Cameron and Karsten onto the call. Thank you for waiting so patiently as we got through our previous degrees. I'll just make sure Cameron can connect as well. That's brilliant. So Karsten, you might, again, we'll follow the pattern. Give us an overview of what this specialism is all about.
Yeah, sure. So in a way, a lot of things have been already said. Like, we wanted to do something to a normal physics degree program, which follows the traditional, like, how does the world work? How does nature works? How do we describe that mathematically? That's something physics does all the time. Physics really underpins the whole data gathering thing, because you need to measure the data at some point. Maybe psychology can deal with surveys and it's completely But if you talk about chemistry, bioprocessing, pharmaceutical companies, electronic engineering, energy sector, they all need to measure data which they want to process afterwards. So physics was always kind of really embedded in that. And when we kind of thought about this new degree program, it was really the case, well, what are the things which are changing most in this kind of context? Because our students were always able to get place in not just intra-placement, but also kind of work after work in the semiconductor industry, pharmaceutical companies, chemical companies, insurance companies, banks. So that's been always there. But we were kind of thinking, okay, what are the things which are kind of changing most dramatically over the coming years? And that brings us then back really to the machine learning, artificial intelligence, which was already mentioned from all of the other courses. And so these are the things we want to integrate into the undergrad program and effectively focus a bit more onto how does it actually work. So what kind of computers do we need? What kind of electronic circuits do we need to actually make these machine learning algorithms more efficient? So it's not so much about using ChatGPT, but it's kind of how can we make something which does this a lot more efficiently? Because right now ChatGPT, it's a massive, it's kind of terabyte of training data. It had been trained for 2 or 3 years in the background. So while in maybe 10 years time, the same kind of thing can be done on your mobile phone. And that's only possible by kind of developing new circuits, new kind of computing concepts, which can do that. And physics really is on the forefront on developing the next generation technology. And these are the elements we wanted to bring into it. At the same time, then we also want to embrace this kind of whole concept of getting away from this kind of, oh, I'm only lecturing all the time and you do your paper-based assignment. So we did do a lot of revamping of assignments. We're running these hackathons. We're embracing the concept of teamwork and these kind of challenges. And we start in year 1, year 2, relatively small, with smaller projects within the modules, but then it's branching out further and further. And in year 3, we will then join the chemistry with AI and bioprocessing for combined projects in the space of machine learning. So we're kind of really simulating that the role of a scientist in society, whether it's physics, chemistry, is kind of expanding, and they're more and more in these kind of diverse team, and that kind of is mimicked in this new degree program. So that's kind of the overall biggest change from our traditional routes.
Yeah, and something that you mentioned that stuck out to me when I was researching the course was the mention of finance and tech and startup companies. I still think there's a stereotype that if you're going to work in science, you're going to be a scientist in a lab. And while you still may be a scientist, you could be working with a startup company, like you said, generating new machine learning. And are there opportunities in terms of internships to work in those areas as well?
Yeah, so it's again one of those elements. The internships in third years are been massively expanded now because we do kind of apply these machine learning concepts. They actually do this machine learning course in a very intense course just before they go out to this placement. And the idea is that companies who actually have projects in that space, they can target students from that kind of new cohort. And again, we are only in year 2 now, and the machine learning is kind of planned for year 3 because there needs to be a bit of, you need to learn a little bit how to program, the maths behind it, the statistics behind it. So that's all kind of built in the first 2 years, and that really then kicks in next year. So internships in finance institutions and insurance companies, data processing, that's kind of already in the works, and it is already happening even before the new process started. It's just now with the machine learning element, it really enforces this and puts our student on a much better footing going into those kind of jobs.
Yeah, of course. So if you're a student listening today who has an interest in physics and you might want to consider it in DCU, just know that there are so many options out there, and you might not even have realized that there's, physics within all these setups and platforms that we use every day. So I might move up to Cameron now, if you want to join us. Cameron, how are you enjoying the first year of physics with data analytics? How's it going?
It's going very well so far. Yeah,
Good.
It's really good.
Do you have a favorite module that you like?
Yeah, I really like the databases and data visualization module, which was just exclusive to our course. And the reason I liked it a lot was because of the practical elements. So there was we were learning for the first 10 weeks of semester, and then the last 2 weeks there was a hackathon, and that really allowed students flexibility to determine, like I said, by the other program chairs, like you get to set a goal and then use everything that you've been taught so far to use the analytics and pursue that goal. So yeah, it's really intense, like a bit of pressure, but it simulates the real world working of like working in teams and trying to get a goal. So yeah, that was my favorite module for sure.
Yeah, that's it. Sometimes you don't just have the answer there in a research paper, do you? You have to kind of figure it out yourself. And I said that little bit of pressure is always good to bring out those good ideas. Cameron, did you always have a kind of problem solver, inquisitive math sort of brain? Did you like all that stuff in secondary school?
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot in secondary school, especially just the physics. Originally, I wanted to study astrophysics for a while, and that's why I wanted to study DCU physics with astronomy. But that's why I think DCU's general entry programs are really good, because in first year we were given a lot of opportunities to like experience little like tasters of each course and really see which one we felt worked good for us. And in the introduction to programming module, I got to see a lot of stuff that we'd be doing in data analytics, and I decided it would be a good fit and some very future-proofed, interesting, like modern course. Like there's a lot of new things going on. So it's really interesting. Yeah.
That's it again. It sounds like we're just a matchmaker here in DCU, but the specific courses for the students who are really enjoying them, which is great. Cameron, if you're looking forward to next year and your internship, if you could choose, what sort of area will you be hoping to go into?
I'm not too sure at the moment, just because there's so many opportunities with physics. But I'm really looking forward to the 3-week boot camp to learn more about machine learning. So hopefully, if there's an opportunity in machine learning, that would be great.
Amazing. That's great. Cameron, thank you so much. Carson, is there anything else you'd like to cover in terms of this new course that students might find interesting?
Yeah, so the thing is, what approach should highlight as well, that it is still a kind of a physics course. So we still do hands-on lab, same as with chemistry, because it's actually a really, really good thing for students to experience the whole the whole breadth of what's out there. So it's not just about only doing computer simulations and only doing computing. So it's really, there's something for everyone. And so that's something for everyone. So it's something which we really would like to highlight, that it's, you still do hands-on job, they're still building things by themselves. And it's really, the new elements are more, there's a bit more choice in terms of how you're consuming the university, because their lectures are partially recorded. There's a lot of online material, more and more online material, to kind of give students a bit more flexibility on the times. But they're also still hands-on lab to do some things practically. And we're trying to really interface a lot more with the other chemistry, with biotechnology, than particularly in later years, because that's kind of the real reality. Like physics underpins a lot of other technologies, so there's not kind of, you will rarely find a job application where someone looks for a physicist. It's kind of more the technical support stuff, there's research stuff. And it's kind of the choice of the students will define where they're ending up with, and it's kind of opens doors. That's kind of the way I would best describe it. And what we do in the new courses is really preparing students much better for that kind of environment, where the students drives the interest, where they drive where they want to go, and kind of get the tools to do that. And that's kind of maybe something I would like to highlight. And that's the same for all of these new courses.
Yeah, and as well as that, as you said, Carson, these are specialisms as well. So you still have, if you're going to enter this course or chemistry with AI, or our next one will cover bioprocessing, you have to enter through general entry anyway. So again, just keeping that open mind that you might think right now you want to go into one, but you might change your mind and choose to go into another one. That's okay. You'll get kind of enough experience in the areas in first year. As Cameron said, you kind of try out a little bit of everything, and then you can be more certain as to the path you take, which is great. Carson and Cameron, thank you so much again. Such valuable insights. And if there's questions, Carson and Cameron will remain online for the next few minutes if you do have anything. So last but certainly not least, let's cover some bioprocessing. So we have Dr. Brian Freeland, and then we have Mala, who can join us as well. Again, thank you for waiting so patiently while we spoke about the other courses. Biology is one of the really popular areas, especially in secondary school. A lot of students love studying biology. So what do they have to look forward to now if they chose bioprocessing as their specialism? Brian, I might ask you first.
Thanks so much, Sinead. Yeah, so basically the degree in bioprocessing, brand new degree, just like the range of futures degrees, and it's primarily a biology degree. So it's a biology-based degree, but its focus is on industry, and its focus really is in equipping students to have the tools to really prosper when they go out into industry afterwards. And why we looked at setting up the degree was that basically, you know, of all the large biopharma companies in the country, so Pfizer, Alexion, and BMS, and then a huge amount of food companies in the country, the likes of Kerry Group and Dairy Gold, and then brewing has exploded in the last few years. And the entire country is crying out for scientists to work in those fields. And the main role they're looking for is what's called as bioprocess engineer or a bioprocess scientist. And we have a postgraduate program for that in bioprocess engineering, but we didn't have an undergraduate program. So really what we wanted to do was to fill that gap and to respond to industry who were crying out for people. And they still are, which is really, really good for us. So the question is then, and a question I get a lot is, what is bioprocessing?
Yeah.
And it's really just biological sciences and taking biology and harnessing the cell. So using what the cell produces for something useful. And that's where the processing part of bioprocessing comes in. So it's using scientific tools and with a combination of engineering tools to really effectively control what the cell does. So in the very simplest term, that's to make a pint of beer. Okay, so the cell takes food you give it, and through a thing called fermentation, you can make beer from that. And we can progress from that and use cells to produce proteins which are effective cancer drugs or vaccines. Okay, so we really cover the full broad spectrum of biology and biology technology and industrialization in the course. And really, as the other people have noticed today, so we start in first year and it's common entry first year, and students do a range of common entry, basically science, general science, and then they move on specialization in biology and then the technology side of it. So they do some engineering, they learn how to use a lot of advanced engineering techniques, programming, sensors, to be able to control what the cells do and be able to ensure that the cells will actually make the vaccine for us, or will make the really nice beer, or will make the really, really good food product at the end of it. And really throughout the 4 years, they're learning those skills. They're learning how to integrate sensors, machine learning, mathematical modeling with standard biology techniques.
Amazing. And as you said, it's an area that they're calling out for in terms of careers in Ireland as well. And Jack has popped a question into the Q&A there for you, Brian. I know that bioprocessing is a new field, but what are your hopes for the future?
So when we say it's a new field, it's a new course in Ireland, but it's really not a new field throughout Europe. And it's been established well over the years. So it has exploded in the last few years in terms of technology development, because with all of the biopharmaceutical companies, they're striving to make more products, more drugs, and to try to get higher efficiencies of production. So every single biopharm company is screaming out for bioprocess engineers and bioprocess scientists to come and work for them. Also then, say the breweries at the minute are trying to make really tasty non-alcoholic beer. They're trying to make different flavors in beer. They're trying to make more beer cheaper. And they need bioprocess engineers to come in and to be able to help them do that as well. The food companies in Ireland, which is a huge, huge part of Irish industry, they're trying to make yogurts that have better health benefits, yogurts that can help reduce the possibility of heart attacks. They're trying to make meats or meat substitutes with high protein, yet not utilizing animals. And all of these roles requires people to be able to come in and know how to produce the cells and know how to be able to set up a factory, how to manage how a cell grows, and also then determine how the cell produces whatever you want at higher volumes, and then scale it up as well. So we're really in the course, like a lot of the other courses, we're utilizing a lot of things like hackathons every year. And really what we're using with those is for students to come and see how that they can use the combination of their biology skills and their engineering skills to make new products. So in second year, we're looking at a range of, say, engineering and biotherapeutic products and maybe food products. As we're moving up, we will be seeing how students can make new drug delivery systems, and how they can look at making also new functional foods and even new beers as well, and utilize their skills to do that. So from first year up, they're in the lab, and from second year up, we're trying to get them in, and these hackathons that they'll be doing, they'll be more and more getting in the lab so that they have a practical and a theoretical basis behind what they're doing as well.
Thank you, Brian. That's such a cool example, as you said, about our diets, even something like producing vegan products or non-alcoholic alternatives, really popular these days. So there's even, we're producing the traditional stuff as well, but also these new adaptations, which are so important for the market. Jack has another question about the work placements, I'd imagine. He's asking, would there be similar internship opportunities for this course or, and the other specialisms, genetics and cell biology, or the
biotechnology.
That's one, biotech.
Yeah. Basically, so the intro program in third year, all of the students go out to very similar types of roles, and the jobs afterwards differ slightly. And we've looked at this so far. We've looked at where students are going, but they're all within similar industries. So I would suggest, say, genetics and cell biology would be slightly more medical based roles. And bioprocessing would be slightly more manufacturing based roles, and bioprocessing would leave you more open to not just to the biopharmaceutical industry, but you can also go into the food and the beverage industry, whereas the genetics and cell biology, you're more either biopharma industry or medical industry. So that would be kind of the difference in the specializations there.
That's great, Brian. Thanks a million. We might see how Mala is getting on in the course so far. You're very welcome to the webinar again. Thank you for waiting. How are you getting on?
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I'm grand. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm a second year student here in DCU. I'm studying bioprocessing, and as Mr. Freeland said there, it's a new course here in DCU. And I actually, when I was doing I did science for junior cert, and then I did biology for my leaving cert, but I hadn't think that I would do anything science based when I went into university college. I actually wanted to do law, which is completely different.
Whoa, what a switch.
Yeah, it was completely different to what I'm doing, but I got really sick, like terribly sick, in fifth year, so in senior cycle. So it just spiked my interest in science, because I was like, even though I was like in the hospital, like with the UVs and everything, I was sitting down like asking the nurse and the doctors, like, what's happening. I was so interested in what was happening to me, like the wires going here and there. So it spiked my interest in like science. So I started looking into like a lot of science courses, and then all of the law courses were like at the bottom. They were basically non-existent. They were all at the bottom.
180 altogether.
Yeah, so I had a lot of science courses for my level 8 and my level 7s. And then I did a biological general entry science in first year, so very general based. And I was really scared going into like science, because I didn't do physics and chemistry for the leaving cert. I was only good at like, my strongest subject out of the science was biology. So I was like, oh, is this really meant for me? But like I was really interested like in the research and everything. But like in doing the biological general entry science, it brought like, it's very like a foundation based. So everyone's going into that like lecture and like the classes and everything with like no knowledge of physics and no knowledge of chemistry and no knowledge of biology as well. So they brought everything up to like everyone's standard, you know what I mean? Like if you had no standard of like any chemistry study or physics study, they would bring you up there as well.
Yeah.
So I got to catch on with like people who did chemistry for the Leaving Cert and people who did physics for the Leaving Cert, and I actually enjoyed like the chemical equations and like, you know, calculations, biochemical calculations, and they were once my weakest subjects, and I'm actually doing fairly well in them now, so I'm enjoying the calculation based stuff.
Yeah, that's great. Goodness, I'm so sorry to hear you were so sick, but goodness, if any silver lining, I guess, is that you're feeling better and you were able to discover this whole industry or sector that you never had considered before, which is incredible. So you were enjoying science at secondary school, and it's a great point. You don't have to be good at all of them at all. To do DCU, you can catch up. If you needed to be good at every single one of them, they'd all have a H1 entry requirement to get in, which is not the case. So you can absolutely get to where you need to be. Are you looking forward to your internship next year then?
Yes, I am actually. I did like a mentorship program in second year, and one of the senior scientists in MSD Swords actually invited me over to the labs, which was a really great opportunity because I got to see like, because bioprocessing is new in DCU, so I wasn't too sure like what route I wanted to take when I graduate and what like route I wanted to take for my work experience in third year. So he invited me over and I got to see like, you know, the downstream process of like, you know, bioprocessing, and he was actually very shocked to hear that I was doing such a specific course. He was like, then all the bioprocessing students in DCU right now are going to go straight into like, you know, because MSD right now is looking for like specific students that are studying what we're studying right now, which is bioprocessing. So it was great to see that I actually have like an opportunity just sitting out there in front of me. So I'm not like just floating on clouds, and that's what I thought I was sitting on, but it's great to see. And I got to see like the upstream industry in the MSD labs and then the downstream industry, so I got a feel of both of them and just to see what my future looks like as well.
Yeah, I think you've totally captured the essence of our new courses, and particularly in science, they were developed with industry in mind. So they're not just, you know, courses that we're running for the crack. It's actually, you know, you're going out to companies and they're going, oh my God, you're learning this in class. That's great. When can you come work for us? And I mean, that's great peace of mind knowing that the area that you're studying, you know, is going to be filled with employment when you finish up, which is great. If you could highlight one module, Mala, that you're loving, or what would sixth year you had loved to know you were studying at university?
I'm really enjoying the labs, the BE 262 labs. I've always enjoyed labs, and especially like, you know, researching and looking through the microscope and like playing around is not the right word, but like playing around with like, you know, the E. coli plates and all that. I'm really like heavily into like research based, so I'm really loving that. And I didn't think I'd ever do coding when it comes to science. I didn't think they would ever go in the same sentence, but there's like coding in the science aspect, and I'm also loving that. So
that's brilliant. Thank you so much. It sounds like I'm so delighted hearing everyone's having such a great experience. It's lovely. Mala or Brian, do you have anything else to mention about the course you think is worth the students knowing before we finish up?
I guess just to say that, to highlight the industry aspect, that every year the program we have industry speakers coming in, and we have courses that are designed around industry problems and designed with industry in mind. So if the students are doing the course with us, they will be prepared for going out and working in biopharma, food, and the brewing and beverage industries when they finish.
That's great. It's just such a great peace of mind hearing from these people, real experiences, real companies, knowing that you know what you're studying is going to be used now and in the future, which is great. Thank you so much. A huge thank you to every single one of our panelists who gave up over an hour of their time today during exam season, during correcting season, research, everything. It's been so informative, and we really are appreciative of your time. And thank you to the attendees as well who have taken time out of their Easter break to come along and learn a little bit more. We really hope it was valuable. If you have any follow-up questions, the email, and you would have received an update from us already, is studenthelp@dcu.ie. So if you want to ask more questions to our lecturers or students, we can certainly pass on your message, and there'll be more opportunities throughout the year to learn more as well. If Lorraine is there, I might just ask if you're still on, or Louise is typing there about the course. That's great. There was a final question about psychology. So you're free to head off now. Again, panelists, thank you so much. But for any attendees with questions, just stay online and we can send you over some information. Enjoy the rest of your break. See you now.